Hello everyone, welcome back to your show, The Art Show. I'm Ryan, the art nerd, and last time, with the same outfit because I just filmed it, we talked about Gothic architecture and we kept comparing it to Romanesque architecture. And when we talked about the Gothic, we talked about the pointed arches and how كيفاش جاونا from the Roman arch اللي جاي semi-circular. ومن بعد هضرنا شوية على the support system. And what's important in Gothic architecture is the support system, is the weight and also the weight distribution. باسكو علاش؟ قلنا من قبيله باللي the Roman arch ولا the semi-circular arch كي يدفع لنا البوا يدفع لنا البوا beaucoup plus les côtés. That means we had to have very thick walls باش يريزيستيو لنا هذاك البوا, sinon the structure would fall. بصح now in Gothic كنا نهضر على pointed arches. قلنا pointed arches were borrowed from Islam, and the pointed arches had a sense of verticality. So like the weight au lieu ما يروح لنا les côtés, it was more going downwards. And this downward weight distribution meant that the buildings could go very, very high. But at the same time, حبينا in Gothic architecture نقولوا لنا the walls thin, يكونوا لنا رقاق. And we said even that the windows, the stained glass windows, were incorporated into the wall, and like basically stone masonry would give us the space of the window where the glass would be put. And thus, if the walls are thin and the building is high, we need support because the building would simply topple over. And thus, وش قال لك لازم نديرو؟ قال لك لازم نديرو kind of a support system. هاد support system is called buttresses. هادوما buttresses يجونا على لي كوتي تاع the wall باش يجيبوا لنا like a triangular slope باش البوا يهبط لنا كامل للتحت. But the problem in this system is that the buttresses هادوك اللي حطيناهم كامل على لي كوتي تاع الحيط would negate the purpose of having big lighty windows, and thus ما نقدروش نديرو هادوما buttresses. So we thought about something else. We thought about لو كان هادوك the buttresses نبوسيوهم شوية لي كوتي ومن بعد واش نديرو a connection ما بين the pier اللي the buttress تاعنا ولا لنا اسمه a pier with the main building through a flyer. وش مدتنا the whole system of flying buttresses. What did the flying buttresses mean though? The flying buttresses meant كنا نقدروا دركا نطلعوا way up in the height of the buildings, but at the same time we'd keep it light, airy, and flooded with light on the inside because the buttresses now are separated. And then the buttresses are separated, it means that the piers and they're very strong. And thus, the buildings became much grander, much bigger, wider, and emptier on the inside, and thus it became very airy and full with light. But this wasn't the only problem we had to solve. We also had the problem with roofing, because keep in mind that the roofs are made of stone, and déjà on top of the roofs, we had to put another roofing system that's made of wooden shingles that would be basically احنا وش نسموه قرمود. And all of this weighs a lot. And to support this weight قلنا كاين the pointed arches on the inside. And the pointed arches هادو ما وش ولاو يدير لهم. هاد the pointed arches they started intersecting them in the long nave. وش تعطينا what is called ribbed vaulting. Basically had ribbed vaulting is 4 arches. So we have the first arch من اللور, the second arch من القدام, and 2 X intercepting arches, and this gives us a very sturdy roof. And again, with the weight distribution of the pointed arch, it gave us a very sturdy cathedral. And when we did this, it enabled the nave to be a lot longer, and this gave us the cruciform plan of the cathedral. We have a very long nave ending up with an altar, behind the choir and some chapels, and that is intercepted by a thinner hall that is the intercept that would even have more chapels to the side. This would give us the cruciform plan. And all of this enabled cathedrals to be huge places of worship. They were high, they were big, they were airy, they were flooded with light. And imagine yourself walking into a cathedral with its big glass windows and very high ceilings, very high walls, where every bit of light is colored and everything shimmers, everything is made of gold. And at the same time, you hear the burning incense and you hear the praise prayers. It was a place of worship. It was a place of contemplation, and it was a place of prayer. بصح هنايا مسموح لنا نقول لكم the word Gothic. You must wonder منين جات هذه الكلمة Gothic. Of it هذه الكلمة Gothic alongside the word Byzantine and so on were invented in the Italian Renaissance. وعلاش؟ باسكو فات هنايا Gothic architecture جابوها معاهم Germanic tribes اسمهم the Goths. And هادوما the Goths started innovating mostly in France. That's why in the medieval period ما كناش نقولوا Gothic architecture, كنا نقولوا the French work ولا the French way. And then the Renaissance artists وش قال لك؟ قال لك باللي هذايا the building style is very different, very radical from classical Roman architecture, and thus it is kind of barbarian, it is savage, and thus they called it Gothic because of the name of the tribes, the Goths. And then هدايا the Gothic was exported from France to all over Europe, and it even got to Italy at some point where we had the Italian Gothic that is very unique from the French Gothic, and there is the German Gothic that is similar but much more flamboyant than the French, and we also get to the English Gothic that is a lot more rectilinear than the French, and we see that one big element that is less prominent in the English Gothic is the rosette or the rose windows. And then after the death of the Gothic, after the Renaissance came, the Baroque and so on, we even see a Gothic revival where we talk about the Neo-Gothic, and the best example of Neo-Gothic really is the National Cathedral in Washington DC in the United States. And this leads me to a big misconception about the Gothic. Actually, when we think about Gothic, we think of Hogwarts. We think about very dark, very grim places. We think of scary places, scary features. We have the gargoyles, our demons, and نحطوهم فوق Gothic churches, and thus it all seems very scary and very grim. But actually Gothic, the whole point of it was being the total opposite. It was being light, it was being airy, and it was being kind of happy really with all the colors and the stained glass and so on. The grim and the sad and the dark, we left it in the Romanesque. Gothic was a huge departure from it, and there are so many beautiful examples of Gothic cathedrals and even Neo-Gothic cathedrals. We have Notre Dame, we have the Houses of Parliament in London as well. And with their pictures side to side, you can see the stark difference between the French and the English Gothic, where the French is a lot higher, but the English is a lot wider. And actually, we gotta talk about something else. Sometimes when you look at buildings that are supposed to be Gothic, for instance, let's talk about the Duomo of Milan, the Cathedral of Milan. And actually, the Cathedral of Milan is supposed to be Gothic, but the problem with the Duomo is that it took 600 years to build, and architects were never shy from changing the style to fit the current taste. So we have this magnificent Gothic cathedral, and then when we look at the windows, we see the pediments on top of them that are very much Renaissance. And thus we see the shift and the mixing of styles in one building, and we could even go and find Gothic, Renaissance, and even Baroque all in the same building. I hope you liked today's episode. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Leave me all your questions and comments below. It's been the Art Nerd. Have a good one.